December 25th, Riverside Heights, California. Christmas morning at the Thompson family house, and my 10-year-old daughter Emma opened that present and everything fell apart. Not all at once. First came the silence where her laughter used to be, then her small hands trembling as she held that box. Finally, that look in her eyes that will haunt me forever. She found me across the crowded living room, past all the relatives and torn wrapping paper scattered like confetti. Her voice cut through the Christmas morning chaos like a knife through silk. "Mama," she whispered, "come here right now." When I knelt beside her and peered into that innocent-looking gift box, my world tilted sideways. 8 minutes later, I was dialing 911 with shaking fingers. If someone had asked me that morning what would ruin our Christmas, I might have said my mother-in-law Dorothy's burnt ham, or perhaps the way she always managed to slip little criticisms into her compliments. "Such a lovely sweater, dear. Store-bought, I assume?" Always with that thin smile that never reached her steel-gray eyes. I would have been so very wrong. The worst part of Christmas was watching my daughter's childhood die right there in that oak-paneled living room, surrounded by people who kept laughing and chatting, completely unaware that our family was dissolving before their eyes. But I need to back up. Let me tell you how we got here, because the real story started long before that terrible morning. The Thompson house sits on Maple Street in Riverside Heights, the same Victorian home where my husband Daniel grew up. 3 stories of cream-colored siding and dark green shutters, with a wraparound porch that creaks in all the same places it did 30 years ago. Inside, it still smells like vanilla candles and old disappointments, still echoes with the same unspoken tensions that made Daniel want to move clear across the country when we first married. But family is family, as Dorothy always reminds us. So every Christmas, we make the drive from Phoenix back to California, packing our little Honda Civic with suitcase and gifts and hope that maybe this year will be different. Christmas morning 2023 started like all the others. Dorothy up at 5:30, fussing over the dining room table like she was preparing for visiting royalty. The smell of coffee and cinnamon rolls drifting through the house. Relatives arriving in waves, each carrying casserole dishes and wrapped presents, filling every chair and corner with noise and laughter. There's Uncle Robert with his booming voice and endless supply of dad jokes. Aunt Patricia, who always asks when Daniel and I are going to give Emma a little brother or sister, as if our family planning is community business. Cousin Jennifer, who teaches high school in Sacramento and treats every conversation like a parent-teacher conference. The children, Emma and her 3 cousins, usually disappear into the basement playroom within minutes of arrival. But this year felt different. Emma stayed close to me, quieter than usual, watching everything with those thoughtful brown eyes she inherited from her father. You see, Emma isn't just our daughter. She's our miracle. Daniel and I tried for years to have children. Years of doctor's appointments and procedures and monthly disappointments that nearly broke us apart. We were just starting to discuss adoption when Emma came into our lives in the most unexpected way. She was 7 years old then, living with her Aunt Rebecca in San Diego after her parents died in a car accident. Rebecca, bless her heart, was barely 25 herself, working 2 jobs and struggling to raise a traumatized little girl who barely spoke above a whisper. When Rebecca reached out through a mutual friend, asking if we might consider taking Emma for a few weeks while she got back on her feet, Daniel and I said yes immediately. We thought it would be temporary, a chance to help a family in crisis while maybe getting a taste of parenthood ourselves. Emma arrived on a Tuesday in March, carrying everything she owned in a small pink suitcase. She was so thin, so pale, with eyes that had seen too much sadness for someone so young. She barely spoke that first week, just watched us with the wariness of a child who had learned not to trust that good things would last. But slowly, day by day, she began to bloom. She started asking for second helpings at dinner. She laughed at Daniel's terrible knock-knock jokes. She let me braid her dark hair before school each morning. When Rebecca called after 6 weeks to ask if we might consider keeping Emma permanently, we didn't hesitate. The adoption was finalized 8 months later, and Emma Thompson became our daughter in every way that mattered. That was 3 years ago. 3 wonderful years of school plays and soccer games and bedtime stories. 3 years of watching a wounded little girl transform into a confident, joyful child who fills our house with laughter and dinosaur facts and terrible attempts at playing the recorder. Emma is our world, our unexpected gift. The answer to prayers we didn't even know we were praying. Which makes what happened next so much more devastating. The Thompson family Christmas tradition involves an elaborate gift exchange that would put Santa's workshop to shame. Every adult buys something for every child. Every child makes or picks out something special for every adult. The presents get sorted into individual piles, each marked with handwritten name tags in Dorothy's careful script. Emma's pile this year was particularly impressive. Books from Aunt Patricia, art supplies from Cousin Jennifer, a science kit from Uncle Robert, clothes from various relatives who still seemed to think she was 7 years old instead of 10. She opened each gift with the careful politeness I've taught her, saying thank you and giving hugs, setting each present aside neatly before moving to the next. She was enjoying herself, I could tell, genuinely happy in a way I hadn't seen for several months. Because the truth is, this year has been hard for our little family. Not because of anything Emma did, but because of what happened to someone we love very much. Emma has a friend named Tyler. Not just any friend, her very best friend since 2nd grade. Tyler Morrison, a sweet boy with red hair and freckles, and a laugh that could light up any room. Tyler and Emma were inseparable. They sat together at lunch, partnered for every school project, spent weekends building blanket forts in our living room or searching for bugs in the backyard. Tyler lived just 6 blocks away with his mom Karen, a single mother who worked as a nurse at Riverside General Hospital. Karen and I became close friends too, bonding over the chaos of raising energetic children and the challenges of navigating elementary school politics. Our family spent holidays together. Karen and Tyler joined us for barbecues and birthday parties. Emma and Tyler had sleepovers at least twice a month. We were like an extended family, united by the simple joy of watching our children grow up together. Then, 9 months ago, Tyler disappeared. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon in March. Tyler was walking home from school, same route he took every day. 6 blocks through quiet residential streets lined with oak trees and tidy front lawns. Karen expected him home by 3:30, same as always. But 3:30 came and went. Then 4 o'clock. Then 4:30. By 5 o'clock, Karen was driving the route between school and home, looking for any sign of her son. By 5:30, she was calling the police. They found Tyler's backpack in Riverside Park, abandoned near the playground where he and Emma used to swing on summer afternoons. Inside were his math homework, a half-eaten apple, and a small wooden dinosaur that Emma had given him for his 9th birthday. That was the only trace of Tyler Morrison that anyone ever found. The police investigation consumed our community for months. Search parties combed every inch of Riverside Heights and the surrounding areas. Volunteers put up missing child posters on every telephone pole and shop window. Local news stations ran Tyler's picture every night for weeks. But there were no witnesses, no security cameras that captured anything useful. No ransom demands or threatening phone calls. Tyler had simply vanished between the school parking lot and his front door, as if he had never existed at all. Emma took Tyler's disappearance harder than anyone. She stopped eating for a week. She had nightmares that left her crying and calling his name in her sleep. She refused to go to Riverside Park or anywhere else they used to play together. 4 months, she kept asking when Tyler was coming home. When could they finish building the treehouse they'd started in our backyard? When would he come over for their weekly movie night? I didn't know how to answer those questions. None of us did. Gradually, Emma began to accept that Tyler might not be coming back. She started eating again, sleeping through the night, playing with other children at school. But something fundamental had changed in her. The carefree innocence of childhood had been replaced by a wariness, a tendency to look over her shoulder, to stay closer to home than she used to. Karen moved away 2 months ago. She couldn't bear living in the house where Tyler's empty bedroom waited for a little boy who would never come home. She packed up their entire life in a single weekend and left for Portland, where her sister lives. We exchange Christmas cards now, but that's all. The friendship couldn't survive the weight of all that shared grief. So when I saw Emma genuinely enjoying herself on Christmas morning, laughing at Uncle Robert's jokes and squealing with delight over the art supplies, my heart felt lighter than it had in months. Maybe we were finally healing. Maybe this Christmas would mark a new beginning for our little family. Then she opened that last present. It was medium-sized, wrapped in red paper with a gold bow. The tag read, "For Emma, with love from Cousin Sarah." Sarah is my sister's daughter, a sweet 12-year-old who lives here in Riverside Heights with my sister Monica and her husband Frank. Emma handled this gift the same way she had all the others, carefully peeling back the tape and folding the wrapping paper instead of tearing it. She lifted the lid of the white gift box, and her whole world collapsed. The change in her expression was so sudden, so complete, that at first I thought she might be having some kind of medical emergency. All the color drained from her face. Her hands began to shake. Her breathing became shallow and rapid. She looked up at me across that crowded room, past all the chattering relatives and scattered gift wrap, and I saw something in her eyes that no parent should ever see. Pure, absolute terror. "Mama," she said again, more urgently this time. "Come here right now." I excused myself from the conversation I'd been having with Aunt Patricia and made my way across the room, dodging discarded ribbons and excited children comparing their new toys. Emma met me halfway, still holding that white box like it contained something dangerous. "Look," she whispered, tilting the box toward me. "But don't say anything. Please." I peered inside and felt my own world tilt sideways. Nestled in white tissue paper was a small wooden dinosaur. Hand-carved, painted green and yellow, with a tiny chip missing from its left front leg. It looked exactly like the one Emma had made for Tyler in art class last year. The one that had been found in his abandoned backpack 9 months ago. But this couldn't be the same dinosaur. The police had kept Tyler's backpack and everything in it as evidence. This had to be a coincidence. A terrible, cruel coincidence. Except it wasn't just any wooden dinosaur. This one had Emma's initials carved into the bottom, faded but still visible, E.T. for Emma Thompson. She had put them there with my help, using Daniel's wood-burning tool, making the gift extra special for her best friend. There was no doubt. This was Tyler's dinosaur. The one Emma had made with her own hands. The one that disappeared with him 9 months ago. And now it was in a Christmas gift box, wrapped with care and placed under Dorothy Thompson's tree. My hands started shaking. The room began to spin. Everything around me, the Christmas music, the laughter, the smell of ham and cinnamon, faded into a distant buzz. "Emma," I managed to say, "go get your coat. We need some fresh air. Is everything all right?" Dorothy called from across the room, her sharp eyes missing nothing as usual. "Just fine," I lied, forcing my voice to sound normal. "Emma's feeling a little warm. We're going to step outside for a minute." I took the box from Emma's trembling hands and guided her toward the front door, past all the relatives who were too busy with their own conversations to notice that our world was falling apart. Outside, the December air was crisp and clean, a sharp contrast to the stuffy warmth of the house. Emma climbed into the back seat of our Honda and curled up in a ball, her face pressed against the window. I slid into the driver's seat and stared at that wooden dinosaur, trying to make sense of the impossible. Tyler's dinosaur was evidence in a missing child case. It should be locked away in some police storage facility. It should not be wrapped up as a Christmas present and placed under my in-laws' tree. The only way it could be here was if someone took it, someone who had access to police evidence, someone who knew exactly what this little wooden toy would mean to Emma and to me, someone in my own family. My phone was in my hands before I consciously decided to call. The 911 operator answered on the second ring. "This is Sarah Thompson on Maple Street in Riverside Heights. I need to report something connected to the Tyler Morrison case. The missing child from 9 months ago. I think I've found evidence." The police arrived within 15 minutes. 2 patrol cars and an unmarked sedan that belonged to Detective Williams, who had been investigating Tyler's disappearance since the beginning. He was a patient man in his 50s with kind eyes and a gentle way of talking to children that had helped Emma through some very difficult interviews in the weeks after Tyler vanished. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, approaching our car with professional calm, "I understand you found something that might be related to Tyler's case." I handed him the box with shaking hands. "This was Tyler's," I said. "Emma made it for him in art class. It was in his backpack when he disappeared." Detective Williams examined the wooden dinosaur carefully, turning it over to see Emma's initials burned into the bottom. His expression grew increasingly grim. "Where did you find this?" "It was a Christmas present, under my mother-in-law's tree, given to Emma by my niece Sarah." The detective looked toward the Thompson house, where warm light spilled from every window and the sound of laughter drifted across the yard. "I'm going to need to speak with your family," he said. "All of them." What followed was the most surreal hour of my life. Detective Williams and 2 other officers entered Dorothy's picture-perfect living room, where 3 generations of Thompsons were still celebrating Christmas morning, and turned our family gathering into a crime scene. Everyone watched with growing alarm as the detective explained why they were there. Uncle Robert's booming laughter died away. Aunt Patricia clutched her coffee cup with white knuckles. Dorothy sat frozen in her favorite armchair, her face pale with shock. The detective asked to speak with Sarah privately. My 12-year-old niece, who had been playing with her new cell phone in the corner, suddenly became the center of everyone's attention. Sarah was a quiet girl, thoughtful and artistic like Emma. She had always been good to her younger cousin, including her in games and activities when we visited, defending her from teasing by the older cousins. The idea that Sarah could be connected to Tyler's disappearance seemed impossible. But when Detective Williams asked where she had gotten the wooden dinosaur, Sarah's story fell apart immediately. First, she said she bought it at a craft fair downtown. Then she claimed she found it in a thrift store. Finally, with tears streaming down her face and her parents looking on in horror, she admitted the truth. Her father, Frank, worked for the Riverside Heights Police Department, not as an officer, but as a civilian employee in the evidence storage facility. He had access to all the items collected during Tyler's investigation, including the contents of the abandoned backpack. Frank had been stealing evidence, small items that he thought wouldn't be missed, items he could sell online or trade for drugs. Frank Morrison had a gambling problem that had spiraled into a drug addiction. He had been taking evidence from solved cases for months, selling it to collectors who didn't ask questions about provenance. But Tyler's case wasn't solved. It was still active, still being investigated. When Sarah mentioned that she wanted to give Emma something special for Christmas, something that would cheer her up after such a difficult year, Frank saw an opportunity to get rid of one more piece of evidence while earning some goodwill from his daughter. He had no idea what the wooden dinosaur meant to Emma. He didn't know that Tyler had been Emma's best friend, that she had made the toy herself, that seeing it again would traumatize her beyond description. To Frank, it was just another piece of evidence he could make disappear. Another small item he could transform into cash for his next bet or his next fix. He wrapped it carefully and told Sarah it was a handmade toy from a local artisan. Sarah, trusting her father completely, wrote Emma's name on the tag and placed it under Dorothy's tree with love and good intentions. Frank was arrested that evening, after a full confession, and a search of his home revealed dozens of other stolen evidence items. Sarah went to stay with her maternal grandparents, while Monica tried to process the fact that her husband had been living a double life for months. The Thompson family Christmas was destroyed. Not just that year, but probably forever. How do you come back from something like that? How do you sit around the same tree and exchange gifts and pretend to be a happy family when one of your own has committed such a betrayal? Emma didn't speak for 3 days after we returned home to Phoenix. She wouldn't eat, wouldn't play with her toys, wouldn't even watch her favorite movies. She just sat by her bedroom window, staring out at the backyard where she and Tyler used to play. On the 4th day, she finally asked the question I had been dreading. "Mama," she said in a small voice, "does this mean Tyler is really dead?" I didn't know how to answer. The wooden dinosaur proved that someone had access to evidence from Tyler's case, but it didn't tell us what had happened to Tyler himself. He could still be alive somewhere. He could still come home. But deep in my heart, I think I knew the truth. Tyler Morrison was gone. The little boy with red hair and freckles and the most wonderful laugh in the world was never coming home. The investigation into Tyler's disappearance was reopened with new urgency. Detective Williams and his team re-examined every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every possible lead. Frank's theft had compromised the case in ways that might never be fully understood. But 3 months later, they found him. A hiker discovered Tyler's remains in a shallow grave about 20 miles outside Riverside Heights, in a wooded area near the lake where Frank liked to go fishing. The coroner determined that Tyler had been dead for approximately 9 months, since shortly after his disappearance. Frank confessed to Tyler's murder 2 days later. He had been driving home from work on the day Tyler disappeared, his judgment impaired by the drugs he'd been using to cope with his gambling debts. He saw Tyler walking alone on Maple Street and offered him a ride, knowing the boy would trust him as Uncle Frank, Emma's relative. Tyler got in the car willingly. He had no reason to fear a man he'd met at family gatherings, a man who worked for the police department, a man who should have been protecting children instead of hurting them. Frank said he never intended to kill Tyler. He claimed it was an accident, that Tyler had tried to jump out of the moving car when he realized they weren't heading toward his house. Frank said he panicked, that he grabbed Tyler to stop him from jumping, that the boy hit his head when he fell back into the seat. But the coroner's report told a different story. Tyler had died from strangulation, not a head injury. He had fought for his life. He had been murdered deliberately, methodically, by a man he trusted. Frank led police to Tyler's grave and confessed to everything. The kidnapping, the murder, the theft of evidence. The months of watching our family suffer while he pretended to grieve alongside us. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He'll die behind bars, and that's exactly what he deserves. Karen Morrison flew back from Portland for the trial. She had aged 10 years and 10 months, her face hollow with grief and exhaustion. She listened to Frank's confession with no expression at all, and when the judge read the sentence, she simply nodded once and walked out of the courtroom. I caught up with her in the parking lot. We stood there in the afternoon sunshine, 2 mothers who had survived every parent's worst nightmare. "I'm sorry," I said, though the words felt completely inadequate. "I'm so sorry about Frank. About all of it." Karen looked at me with eyes that had seen too much pain. "It's not your fault," she said. "None of this is your fault. But it felt like my fault. Frank was my family, my sister's husband, someone I had welcomed into my home, someone I had trusted around my own child. How do you live with that knowledge? How do you move forward when someone you love has done something unforgivable?" Emma handled the news of Tyler's death with a maturity that broke my heart. She cried, of course. She grieved for her best friend and the future they would never share. But she also seemed relieved to finally know the truth, to have closure after months of uncertainty. We held a memorial service for Tyler in Phoenix at the little church where Emma and I attend Sunday school. Karen came down from Portland, and we invited everyone who had known and loved Tyler during his short life. His teachers, his classmates, the neighbors who had searched for him when he first disappeared. Emma spoke at the service. She stood in front of all those people and talked about her best friend with a poise and eloquence that amazed everyone present. "Tyler was the best person I knew," she said in her clear, strong voice. "He was funny and smart and kind. He always shared his lunch with kids who forgot theirs. He never said mean things about anybody. He would have grown up to do important things, to help people and make the world better." She talked about their friendship, their shared love of dinosaurs and adventure movies, their plans to be paleontologists together and discover new species in faraway places. "I miss him every day," she said. "I'll miss him for the rest of my life. But I'm glad I got to be his friend, even if it was only for a little while. Some people never get to have a friend like Tyler, and I was lucky." There wasn't a dry eye in that church. Karen came up to Emma afterward and hugged her so tightly I thought she might never let go. "Thank you," she whispered into Emma's hand. "Thank you for loving him. That was 2 years ago." Emma is 12 now, in 7th grade, taller and more confident, but still carrying the scars of what she experienced. She's made new friends, joined the school debate team, discovered a passion for creative writing that helps her process difficult emotions. She still talks about Tyler sometimes. She keeps his picture on her bedroom dresser, right next to the new wooden dinosaur she carved in art class last year. This one has Tyler's initials burned into the bottom. TM for Tyler Morrison, her best friend who deserved so much more than he got. Daniel and I moved Emma to a different school after the trial, wanting to give her a fresh start away from all the memories and media attention. She's thriving there, making good grades and genuine friendships, slowly learning to trust the world. We don't go back to Riverside Heights for Christmas anymore. We can't. Dorothy Thompson sold a family house and moved to a retirement community in Florida. She sends Emma birthday cards, but we rarely talk. The extended family gatherings are a thing of the past, casualties of Frank's betrayal, and the knowledge that our Christmas traditions were forever tainted by tragedy. Monica divorced Frank while he was awaiting trial. She moved across the country with Sarah, starting over in a place where nobody knew their story. Sarah sends Emma letters, sometimes, apologizing again and again for her unwitting role in that terrible Christmas morning. Emma always writes back, forgiving her cousin and encouraging her to move forward without guilt. Because Emma understands something that took me much longer to learn. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending the bad things never happened. It means choosing to build something good from the wreckage, choosing hope over despair, choosing love over fear. We spend Christmas with new friends now, people who know our story and love us anyway. We've created new traditions, new ways of celebrating that honor Tyler's memory while allowing us to move forward. Last Christmas, Emma asked if we could volunteer at the local children's hospital, reading stories to kids who couldn't go home for the holidays. We spent Christmas Eve in the pediatric ward, surrounded by sick children and their worried families, bringing small moments of joy to people who needed them most. It was the best Christmas we'd had in years. Sometimes I wonder what Tyler would think of the woman Emma is becoming. Would he be proud of her strength, her compassion, her determination to use her pain to help others? I think he would. I think he'd be amazed by her resilience and her ability to find light in the darkest places. Emma wants to be a victim's advocate when she grows up, to help other families navigate the criminal justice system and find their way through trauma. She's already volunteering with local organizations that support families of missing children, sharing her story and offering hope to parents who are living their worst nightmare. Tyler's death wasn't meaningless if it helps Emma save other children. His memory lives on in every life she touches, every family she helps, every moment of healing she facilitates. That's not justice, exactly. Nothing can bring Tyler back or give Karen the son she lost. But it's something. It's hope. It's proof that even the darkest tragedies can eventually give birth to light. The wooden dinosaur that started it all sits on Emma's bookshelf now, the one she carved for Tyler's memory. She looks at it sometimes when she's doing homework or getting ready for bed, and I know she's thinking about her friend. But she's not frozen by grief anymore. She's not defined by what was taken from her. She's become someone who takes broken things and makes them beautiful again, someone who turns pain into purpose and loss into love. That's Tyler's real legacy. Not the manner of his death, but the life his memory inspired in the girl who loved him most. We're okay now. Changed, scarred, but okay. We've learned that families can survive even the most unthinkable betrayals, that love is stronger than grief, that hope can grow in the darkest soil. Some Christmas gifts destroy everything you thought you knew about your life. But sometimes, if you're very lucky and very strong, you can take the pieces and build something even more beautiful than what came before. That's what we've done. That's what Tyler would have wanted. That's how we honor the little boy who should have grown up to change the world, but who changed us instead.